backdrop of our entire company is that traditional agriculture is completely unsustainable, and more research is coming out about just how devastating some of the effects are. And most of it has to do with monoculture, the system that humans have developed to plant one type of crop, which is often genetically modified, on huge swaths of land. If you were walking through a prairie or any other natural environment, you would see rich diversity of life because everything in that ecosystem is connected and there is no waste. The system that humans have created, monoculture, to feed the planet, nature never intended for. So in order for us to accommodate these systems, we have to use unnatural methods, which often involve herbicides, pesticides, and irrigation. Agricultural runoff from these monoculture operations is some of the most toxic pollutants that we've ever conceived.
We really have very little control over the foods that are coming in from outside of our borders. As a matter of fact, when you think about it, every time we outlaw a chemical because it's a carcinogen in the United States, those companies don't stop making that chemical. It then is sold to other countries who then continue to use that chemical, and then we're importing that food that has just been exposed to those chemicals, and we're eating those foods.
Disturbed by the poor quality of our food and the devastating effects of traditional farming, a group of young entrepreneurs in Chicago designed a system to sustainably grow organic food indoors. The system is so efficient, they believe it can be profitable on a commercial scale. Despite a weak economy, the four friends who grew up together in Chicago's North Shore started their innovative business called 312 Aquaponics. Aquaponics is the combination of aquaculture, which is raising fish as livestock, and hydroponics, the process of growing plants in water as opposed to soil. When the two systems are put together, the fish waste supplies nutrients to the plants, and the plants clean the water for the fish. The system can recycle itself an infinite number of times, while producing minimal unreused waste.
Well, the idea for 312 Aquaponics all began back when we were in college at UIC. My roommate John decided to start a aquaponics small setup, like 20 fish, and like a 3x3 hydroponic raft in his house. And it worked so successfully that we thought that it had enormous commercial potential.
These two went to high school together, and we went to high school together, and we went to sister schools. And then the three of us went to UIC together in Chicago, and Mario was at DePaul in Chicago. So that's really interesting. I never really stopped to think about it. We've always kind of been like...
No one's gone too far.
Yeah, exactly. Where we're developing a limited catalog of products. Our flagship product is called an Aquapod or pod, and it is a standalone commercial unit that can grow a lot of friggin' food and house a lot of fish. To put it generically.
We don't have to worry about environmental conditions or spraying pesticides or toxins in the water such as mercury and lithium and whatnot because we're growing inside. Mm-hmm. And when you have isolated conditions inside, you can grow perfect plants, isolated plants, and those plants grow very well because they don't have any stressors in their environment. We can grow organic food 365 days a year in the same conditions and dictate how fast it's going to grow for the most part and what kind of yield we're going to get. So that's great, because we'll be able to feed a lot more people with more, with a higher quality food than we would have been able to do before with traditional farming.
We can't do what we've been doing successfully anymore. Enter aquaponics.
So Miles Harston is a fellow we met at the Chicago Farm Expo at UIC.
We found out that he was commissioned by CSU to build the biggest system in Chicago as of now, and their hired labor crapped out. So we came in and built the system with Miles.
So by working with Miles, we were able to see that a commercial scale system was actually possible.
Yeah.
I got involved with the gentleman from 312 because I was in the process of building a system for Chicago State University. And they decided they wanted to volunteer to help so that we could meet the deadlines that we had to meet. The gentlemen at 312 have been an integral part of putting together the largest aquaponics system in the city of Chicago.
After seeing their small growing system on a larger scale, the guys realized that aquaponics had the potential to change the way urban communities eat. The average distance that a vegetable travels to a city before it's consumed is 1,500 miles. Their new system meant that urban populations could have access to organic, locally grown produce. Now they had a plan. The next step was to find the right space to develop an indoor farm in the middle of the city.
This guy, John Edel, who was hosting a talk at this Northside library, and we put it on our calendars and we went. And the theme of the talk was about this building the plant that he was trying to purchase. Right. It was an old abandoned meatpacking plant that a company called Pure Foods had used for quite a while on the south side of Chicago. And it had been abandoned when Pure Foods left. He acquired it from the city at auction, and basically it's going to become the first vertical farm in Chicago and hopefully a prototype for future vertical farms across the country or the entire world.
When we started to tell John about what we wanted to do for an aquaponics facility, he was like, I really want you to be in my building.
So the business models functioning here at the plant are not one-sided. It's not one giant company. It's not one giant nonprofit that's running it. The idea is that this is a business incubator. At the plant, we're going to be closing waste loops by finding our tenants based on their waste outputs and inputs. If you can combine uses in one location, it makes it a lot easier to close those waste loops. Every time you close a loop, everything gets vastly more efficient. Working with 312 makes a lot of sense. From our growing rooms, we'll have excess oxygen, which we can pipe into office spaces. We can use waste heat from the lighting to help heat other spaces or manufacturing spaces. And I think you'll see a lot more buildings built on this model in the future, or rebuilt, I should say.
I met the principals of 312 at the open house for the plant, and they came up and said, we've been working with a guy that we have worked with also in the past. We've been doing aquaponics. We think it's something that we really want to get into, and we'd also like to do it here. And I thought, that's great, because they bring a certain intellectual property to the plant that we don't ourselves possess. We can all share ideas. We can all learn from each other. I think it's a great thing. I think they have a real high-tech business model, and I think that that's going to really probably produce some good results. And we're going to work with them.
I think a question we all get asked a lot, the four of us, is why don't you just get a real job? Just quit, messing around with the fish and the plants and get a real job. And in reality, all of us have gotten job offers at very comfortable salaries and very nice, cushy environments. We've all believe in this company, and we ran the numbers, we did our market research, we've done a lot of homework, and everything tells us that this is profitable, that we can make a living if we do it right with this. Very excited to, stop thinking and talking, start building and test our concept and learn as we go and spread aquaponics as far as we can.